I was about to upgrade my CPU on my benchmarking system to the 7800 X3D, which I finally got a hold of and got in the mail. When I saw this headline, and this has given me a little bit of pause, you can see that is still in the box. Well, what's going on here? I have an ASUS ROG Strix X670E. Mine's the Dash A gaming Wi-Fi motherboard. The point is that right as I was about to make that upgrade, I saw this headline and looked into it, and I think, we got a lot of other news stories to cover today, but let's start with this. So a Ryzen 7 7800 X3D CPU burns up and kills itself and the X670 motherboard. Now, this is an ASUS motherboard, and that's going to be relevant when we try to figure out, is this happening to a lot of CPUs, or was this a one-off? Now, this was posted on Reddit originally, and you can see that this is burned up. The Reddit user, it looks like USpeedRookie, posted about this, and the CPU stopped working. The system had an ROG Strix X670E motherboard from ASUS, like me, and was seen running in idle mode with fan speeds at full. The motherboard had a 00 Q code and the debug LED. Took the system apart, noticed that it had a big bulge on the contact pad, and the underlining LGA pins were also burnt. It's dead. It's dead, guys. Now, some good news is that the Gamers Nexus, Steve, has reached out in that Reddit thread and is buying the motherboard and the CPU. So I'm hoping that they are able to do some thorough testing over on that channel and get us some more specific details on what's going on. However, is it just that one chip? Well, this is where we get into making some connections. So it looks like the YouTube channel, the Russian channel Vikov, has also reported similar issues on ASUS's AM5, specifically ASUS's AM5 motherboards running a different CPU, but this was the 7950 X3D, so still from that 3D V-Cache lineup, and has seen this on, I think it's multiple issues that he has mentioned. Now, also, Bauer did manage to kill a 7950 X3D by pushing the voltages too high, and this was on an ASUS AM5 motherboard. Now, I don't, now he's doing extreme overclocking, right? However, it's unclear whether the original Reddit user reporting this was running things at completely stock settings or not. So I think there's a lot to investigate here. In other words, I don't think everybody needs to be terrified this is going to happen to all of the 7000 series chips, or even on every ASUS motherboard paired that way. I think I'm really glad that Steve at Gamers Nexus has seen this, because I'm sure we'll get a thoroughly researched follow-up at some point. But I wanted to get you guys the news out here, because I know myself, at least, having an ASUS X670 motherboard and seeing this has made me a little hesitant to install it. However, I mean, I guess, maybe it would give me a good video content if it happened to me. I did look at ASUS's website, and it looks like they have taken down some of their BIOS, revisions from their page. So I'm wondering if they're aware that, or at least investigating if there could be some kind of issue with certain BIOS revisions allowing too much voltage or something like that. I don't know, but this is certainly something I want to keep an eye on. But let's move on to some other news topics. So that's not the one I meant. This one. Let's talk about this one. Not that one. This one. Okay, 4060 Ti. We've seen various rumors that this one will be coming out soon-ish, within the next month or two. A lot about the specs and performance and the pricing. Now, a lot of people were thinking the 4060 Ti, just from, looking at the market, okay, the 4070 came in at $600. Is the 4060 Ti going to come in $100 less at $500? Which I think would once again make it a very disappointing product when compared to its, performance uplift from the last generation in the similar price point. Especially since it's rumored to end up with about 3070 Ti performance. So if it came in at $500, it wasn't much better than a 3070, because a 3070 Ti is not much better than a 3070. That's, again, very disappointing. Now, I'd seen channels like Red Gaming Tech claim sources had been given numbers like $450, which is at least a little bit better, but still an an increase in pricing from the 3060 Ti. But he did mention that the pricing can change as you get closer to launch. A lot of times NVIDIA is making decisions up till the last minute and doesn't even tell board partners the final pricing. Anyway, so we're seeing another article here, this one from WCCF Tech, saying $399 US, same pricing as the 3060 Ti. So finally not seeing a generational upgrade, at least when you're comparing names of the products. Now, do you still get an exciting performance uplift, and is this going to be true? We'll see. I do think that it's very important that NVIDIA not, how should I put this? Not overprice these, and also, like, the specs on these don't seem particularly exciting. So, first of all, where are we getting the performance numbers from? Well, we've seen rumors about the specs from the same sorts of sources that did accurately get specs for the 4070 launch, that kind of a thing. We've seen boost clocks leaked for at least the colorful iGame version from a tweet from T4C Fantasy. He's also confirmed 8 GB memory configuration. There's been a lot of other leaks going along with this. So basically, you can look at a table of the specs on this thing, the number of CUDA cores. So these are rumored specs for the 4060 Ti, 8 gigabytes, which I think is disappointing for a lot of people. The 3060 Ti also had 8 gigabytes, and it's one of the reasons why some people are not super excited about the 3060 Ti. Well, 4060 Ti rumored to still have 8 gigabytes, and this be on a 128-bit bus. Anyway, so there's that. The rumored release date has been May. We have yet to see if that actually ends up being true. But if you take its rumored number of CUDA cores, you can get like teraflops performance metric. The WCCF Tech article here had, I think if I zoom out, this will be easier to see perhaps from here. But you can see a table of, this is just compute power in teraflops by taking the specs and doing some quick math. So this is from, like I said, WCCF Tech. You can see the theoretical performance of the 4060 Ti does place it at about 3070 Ti levels of performance, which is not very far ahead of the RTX 3070. It is faster than a 3060 Ti, but not like mind-blowingly faster. So again, with the same amount of VRAM, you would really hope that they're at least not increasing the price. So hopefully, $399 does sound more reasonable. We'll have to see what comes from that. Now, I really do think NVIDIA does need to rein in their pricing here. I really hope they do. And we're already seeing signs of the 4070 and the other 4000 series starting to have their prices creep back a little bit. We just saw, and I reported this on my community page where I post deals, Micro Center offering $100 Steam gift card on all NVIDIA GeForce RTX 40 purchases. I do believe this is an in-store deal, so I think their idea is, okay, we've got all these 40 series GPUs, the inventory is not moving, so can we get people in the store? Well, if we can't discount it $100, maybe we can throw in a $100 Steam gift card, which Micro Center probably gets at some kind of price less than $100, right? And then put them in the back of the store, so you have to walk through the store. Hopefully you buy something that we actually, make some more margin on, that kind of thing. We've also seen some articles like here from Tech Power Up, and again, links to everything we talk about will be in the video description, showing that NVIDIA could be reducing RTX 4070 production. And we've seen at least a single Palit model card with its price reduced in one region. So this would basically be if NVIDIA is like, oh, okay, our 4070 inventory didn't sell through very quickly, they would be trying to correct the supply and demand if the demand is lower than the supply. While you could try to reduce the pricing to increase demand, they may be preferring a method of trying to reduce supply so that you don't get just way too much backing up in inventory channels. Now, that could also happen along with a price reduction. And we have seen at least an article here from Igor's lab about will the GeForce RTX 4070 be cheaper, saying NVIDIA supports board partners with a significant rebate. So again, this is all, hearing from sources from, board manufacturers, all that kind of stuff. But he is saying he is hearing that there could be some rebates available to manufacturers who they could then pass on to consumers a little bit to support reducing the 4070 pricing a bit. Because again, it's looking like $600 has not been an exciting price point for a 70 class GPU in this market. Also, speaking of price cuts and bundles on 40 series GPUs, this is an interesting one from Japan. Japanese retailer offering a free Intel Arc A750 with Nvidia's RTX 4090. I don't know, this is just funny to picture. It's like, oh, here, you bought a 4090, we'll throw you a little GPU along with it. What are you going to do with it? I don't know, maybe you're building a PC for your... Maybe they're hoping that now you'll want to build another PC, maybe for your kid or your friend or something, and you'll buy more parts from them. I don't know. It just seems like a weird bundle deal to throw in a less good GPU with a good GPU. Just seems like a weird bundle. Anyway, speaking of GPUs, how about AMD with their Radeon RX 7600S RDNA 3 laptop GPU tested? Now, videocards.com is reporting on this, coming from a German tech site, Computerbase, doing the actual testing. And we should talk about the 6% number because there's a bit of a caveat there. It actually could be a little bit worse. Now, with laptops, you always have to be aware that there's thermal constraints within the various laptop configurations, so it's very difficult to get a perfect apples-to-apples comparison between models. All of that kind of stuff. There's good testing here. You can check the link in the description. I focus more on desktop GPUs, so I don't want to spend a huge amount of today's video talking about this. But there's some interesting charts here, like performance per watt. So you can see, at the, performance per watt numbers, how the 7600S in red here is doing up against the kind of orangish line, which is the 4060 laptop GPU. You can also see it up against 4070, 4080, and 4090 laptops. And so where they're getting the actual performance difference number from the headline is with saying without ray tracing, there's only a 6% difference if you use the minimum texture option to avoid a VRAM limit, to 13% difference if you have the same texture setting in terms of performance between both GPUs, the 4060 and this 7600S, at 80 watts. However, it's the AMD GPU that apparently was spilling over on its memory, possibly due to differences in how the cards handle VRAM usage, maybe compression differences. I don't know. It could be interesting to look into the full Computerbase review. But I am going to move on and talk a little bit more about AMD, but this time with the 780M RDNA 3 iGPU. So this would be an integrated GPU rather than a discrete laptop GPU. This has been tested. Now, this test was a little bit interesting. Again, being reported by videocards.com, but I guess the original testing was from ETA Prime on YouTube. And he got his hands on a laptop that I believe actually comes with a discrete GPU. Is it like an Nvidia one? I don't know where the details are here, but the point is he decided to focus in the video on the integrated Radeon 780M RDNA 3 iGPU in the testing. Now, one important thing to mention, though, was apparently there weren't finalized drivers available for that iGPU. So all of the testing could yield different results once that has more finalized drivers. Also, with integrated GPUs, it's very important to think about what memory is being used. Looks like the ASUS gaming laptop had dual-channel DDR5 5600 memory and up to 4 gigabytes of shared memory dedicated for the GPU. And so you could obviously run this in different configurations. Anyway, we've got some time spy scores and things like that. It's showing in 3D Mark, the 780M is only 12 to 15% faster than the predecessor, the 680M, in Firestrike and at Time Spy, respectively. So, but the 680M system here was using faster DDR5 memory. So that's where I'm saying is that might not sound super impressive uplift, but the memory configuration on an iGPU is extremely important. So maybe it doesn't tell us everything we'd like to see. Overall, There were crashes in various games because, like I said, I think without the finalized drivers, this will be limited in how much it tells us, but did get some very good performance numbers in a variety of games that were working. Anyway, you could watch the full video or read this article linked in my description if you'd like some more details. I'm very interested in these integrated RDNA 3 GPUs. Honestly, personally, not for their actual laptop performance, but for their performance in gaming handheld PCs. Like, for example, ASUS's ROG Ally, with which we now have some more info on this. Some people were wondering, is it just going to be the 780M inside? Well, it looks like it might be a little bit more customized than that. So, looks like a Ryzen Z1 Extreme Phoenix APU leaks out, coming in with the ROG Ally. So this will be an interesting Steam Deck competitor. There's some Geekbench leaks out showing that configuration. And also there was a leaked image here talking about some of the marketing slides with a Z1 series Ryzen processor. It looks like there could be a couple of configurations here then, though, based on its pricing. So it's interesting to see exactly how this thing plays out, but I think we're still in the point of we don't know exactly how it'll turn out. However, we do have another handheld competitor with the GPD Win Mini, getting an AMD Ryzen 7640U or 7840U, which is another Zen4 APU with RDNA 3 graphics, coming in at $700 plus and supporting external GPUs. And this is, I guess, originally coming from YouTuber The Fox, but again, reported by videocards.com. You can see some ideas on the designs here. And looks like you can see the SoC GPU on there would probably be a 780M on the higher end one, or a 760M with 6 compute units versus 12 compute units. Anyway, all of these compared to the Steam Deck, which is RDNA 2 with 8 compute units and a much weaker CPU, because that was based on Zen 2 architecture versus these Zen 4 architectures. It will be interesting to see what kind of performance we get from these handhelds. However, Valve, continuing with the software side of things, they're running on Linux, so it looks like Valve has Proton 8 now making Forspoken and Dead Space remake, as well as some others, playable on Linux. So it's nice to see that development. Looks like the full list of games that are now playable with this version of Proton, which is the compatibility layer kind of stuff that they're doing to get these Windows games working on the Linux operating system. So a bunch of games working now that didn't before, so that's good to see. Now, I'll finish up with, if you're not excited enough about the Ryzen 7000 series APUs, how about the 8000 series? This is an article from WCCF Tech. Looks like the leaks of Zen 5 Fire Range and Strix Point families coming, and also Hawk Point with Zen 4 and RDNA 3.5 APUs. Looks like most of the info originally came from YouTuber Moore's Law is Dead. And a bunch of info there. If you're ever not sure if it came from Moore's Law is Dead, then the picture will let you know. Anyway, so there's some interesting info here. I'm curious about how RDNA 3.5 will compare and all of that. But this stuff is all still pretty far in the future. Quarter 2, quarter 3 of next year, I believe, as far as when that is incoming. So we'll have to see where all that goes. Link in the description if you want more details on that, or watch the Moore's Law is Dead video. Now, how about let's talk about some GPU designs. It looks like some people are really into Spider-Man this week. So Zotac and Sony have announced the GeForce RTX 4070 Spider-Man series. So if you're like, I'm not going to buy a 4070, but you really like Spider-Man, maybe these will change your mind. So we've got some Spider-Man themed Zotac cards here. Now, if this particular Spider-Man themed card is not to your liking, Palit has an unlicensed announcement right here, which is interesting. So Palit has this thing going where they have 3D printing compatibility for replaceable cooler models on their cards. And that's what they're showing off here. Since this Spider-Man that they designed is unlicensed, I don't think they can give you the exact model, 3D printing model to replicate this on your GPU. But again, it's a cool showcase of Palit's, design that allows for the what do they call this? Their Maker series, something like that, where you can design and 3D print different covers for your GPU to customize them. It's pretty cool. Like that option. Now, MSI Afterburner, some people wonder what I use when I'm doing my GPU benchmarking to monitor all of those stats. I'm using MSI Afterburner, which links up with the included Riva Tuner statistics server to then report all of those stats. Now, when the RX 7000 series GPUs, the 7900 XT and XTX came out, and I did my reviews on those, a lot of people, myself included, were disappointed that I didn't get like the power draw numbers reported there. What was going on? Well, the software needed to be updated to support showing that stat, as well as being able to do a variety of other things with those GPUs. Well, look, but unfortunately, the development on the MSI Afterburner project had slowed down, if not completely stopped for a while, because the developer is in Russia and there's all the sanctions and everything. We don't need to get into all of that in this particular video. The point is, it slowed down MSI Afterburner development. We finally have a new stable release. There had been some beta updates that did allow for some more support of those stats and other GPUs. But now we're seeing MSI Afterburner 4.65 stable released with support for RTX 40 and Radeon RX 7900 series in the actual stable release. This is very good news for people who rely on this software. A lot of updates here if you want all of the details, but basically that's finally there. Now, speaking of updates, how about Microsoft's DirectStorage? There's now a 1.2 available now. Doesn't look like anything massively different. It looks like one of the biggest things is allowing it to run in a buffered mode rather than just an unbuffered mode, which should help HDDs running, I guess, the same code path, because the HDDs could benefit from the OS file buffering features where you wouldn't need that on the SSDs where the DirectStorage really counts. Also, it looks like some streamlining of some compression support. A lot of this is kind of in the weeds. I'm not sure we need to go into the details. Link in the description if you want more info. But if you're thinking this will improve DirectStorage or like games already right now, remember all of this needs to get implemented into games. Right now we hardly have any games with any DirectStorage support. Has anything besides Forspoken come out? I saw something about possibly... no, did Diablo 4 have it? No, I think those were just rumors based on some stuff in the code. I think at this point it's just Forspoken, isn't it? Anyway, now in terms of other Microsoft developments though, Microsoft is working on an ARM-powered Surface Go 4 and a new 11-inch Surface Pro. So it'll be interesting to see if Windows on ARM gets taken a little bit more seriously and develops a little bit more. Will we all end up on ARM-powered devices sometime in the future? We shall see. Also, Microsoft apparently working on its own AI chips that may rival Nvidia's. Now, that doesn't mean that you will be buying a GPU from Microsoft. This is more in the business space where they want to accelerate a lot of AI. AI is exploding. This is huge business for Nvidia, but that doesn't mean that every company wants to pay tens of thousands of dollars for the AI acceleration hardware from Nvidia. So some companies build their own AI accelerators. It basically comes down to a gamble on will the research, because it doesn't even need to be better than what Nvidia's option. If you save cost on just, you can make them yourself cheaper. So it comes down to could the research and development of making your own end up costing less than the premium you're having to pay to get the Nvidia versions. Also, if the ones you develop end up not being as good as the Nvidia option, you also need to be able to make up for that difference as well by having to get more, Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Intel Arc GPUs. So it's looking like they're releasing a developer blog, or an Arc blog post talking about XeSS support in Cyberpunk 2077. So with the RT Overdrive release, which got a lot of attention, a lot of people didn't give as much attention to the fact that XeSS support that's Intel's version of like a DLSS upscaler, did get added into the get added into the game. So Intel's like, hey, we added in XeSS, and you can get a big performance boost by using it in Cyberpunk. So there's that, showing that they could get an A750 to go from 1080p Ultra RT Medium at 39 FPS to 67 FPS using Intel XeSS performance. So big jump there, and yeah, XeSS is in that game. Now, speaking of RT overdrive mode, Digital Foundry has had a series of really good videos on the topic. Their latest one came out, I think, yesterday as of the time of filming this, with a tech focus, talking a lot more about the development of path tracing, especially comparing it to, you know, when the path tracing was first getting talked about with like the 2080 Ti running, what was that? I'm spacing it. Quake. There we go. Right, with RTX mode, sorry, with full path tracing. Versus trying to get it up and running in something like Cyberpunk, which is a whole different level of complexity. I'm just freezing on this one screen. You should watch the video if you're interested in all of the RT tech. But I thought one thing that was interesting that they talked about is, well, a 3070 usually performs about the same as a 2080 Ti. And actually, since the 2080 Ti has more VRAM, in some recent games, the 2080 Ti has been outperforming the 3070 when the 3070 runs out of VRAM, but the 2080 Ti doesn't. But usually they have, when not VRAM constrained, very similar overall performance. When you're talking full path tracing, the 3070 actually has significant advantages due to some of the architectural changes between the generations. And there was another similar jump from the 30 series to the 40 series. So when you're using full path tracing, there has been some significant updates to the actual ray tracing abilities there. Anyway, I'll also mention that there's some new drivers out within the last couple of days that if you haven't got yet, you might want to. Nvidia's got one for Jedi Survivor and Dead Island 2, along with a few fixed issues highlighted here. And then AMD also had a new driver come out, this one on April 20th. This one looking like highlights our support for Dead Island 2. And they're definitely mentioning that you would get a significant performance uplift if you're using this versus the previous driver version. Looks like up to 14 or 15% difference in Dead Island 2. Also with a few corrected issues. And again, both AMD and Nvidia still listing some known issues along the way. All right, everybody. I hope all of you have an excellent day. I'm going to go have some coffee.